All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a question that's a real head-scratcher, one that has puzzled thinkers for, well, centuries. It's a genuine paradox right at the heart of some very deep beliefs.
You know, some religious ideas aren't exactly straightforward, are they? They can feel like these puzzles wrapped in a mystery. They're complex, layered, and sometimes they even seem to contradict themselves. It's like they're asking us to think in a totally different way, beyond just what makes sense on the surface.
And that brings us to the big one, the core paradox we're digging into today. How can one single person be both a father and a son? I mean, in our world, a father and a son are always two different people. So how does this work? It just seems to fly in the face of basic logic, right?
Now, just so we're all on the same page, we're going to look at this puzzle through one very specific lens. This entire explainer is pulled from teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So what we're really doing is unpacking their answer to how this paradox gets resolved.
Okay, so first up, let's really get a handle on this divine paradox.
So according to the source material, this whole thing, it's not actually a contradiction at all. The key is understanding that Jesus Christ is called the Father for four very distinct but connected reasons. It's a fourfold answer.
Let's walk through these. Number one is divine investiture of authority. Think of it like this. He speaks and acts with the Father's full authority. Kind of like an ambassador who speaks for the king, right? When the ambassador speaks, it's as if the king himself is speaking. Okay, number two, Father of creation. Pretty straightforward. He's the one who actually created the heavens and the earth, but he did it under the Father's direction. Then number three, Father of spiritual rebirth. This is the idea that when people follow his gospel, they become his spiritual children, making him their spiritual father. And finally, number four is dual nature. This one's fascinating. His divine power makes him a father, while his mortal physical body makes him a son. So he holds both natures at once.
Now, this next point is absolutely crucial. To make sense of those four reasons, you have to understand this key distinction. The source teaches that Jesus Christ and God the Father are two separate, distinct beings. They are not the same person. They are, however, perfectly one in purpose and will. This is a huge departure from the traditional Trinity doctrine you might be familiar with, which sees them as three persons in one single being.
So, you might be asking, where does this idea even come from? Well, the source material points to the scriptures to back it up. Take this famous prophecy from Isaiah in the Old Testament. It says, "Unto us a son is given." But then just a little later, it calls him the everlasting Father. I mean, right there in one verse, you have both titles, Son and Father, side by side. It's a perfect example of this paradox being laid out in Scripture.
And then there's this from the Book of Mormon. It says that because of a covenant people make, they'll be called the children of Christ, his sons and his daughters. This directly supports that third point we talked about, the whole idea of spiritual rebirth. He becomes your spiritual father because you've entered into this relationship with him.
And it's not just in the standard canon. The source also points to other ancient writings, stuff that's not in the Bible, apocryphal texts like the Shepherd of Hermas. This was written way back in the 2nd century. And guess what? It echoes the exact same idea, that the Son can be called the Father because he's the one who created everything and gives spiritual life.
Okay, so if the explanation is laid out like this, you've got to wonder, why is this so confusing for so many people? Why all the debate over the centuries?
The source material really leans into that question. It basically asks, why would God let such a confusing idea even exist? Is the confusion the point? Is it some kind of divine test? Or did something go wrong somewhere along the way?
So we get two competing views on this. On one side, you have the divine test theory. The idea here is that the complexity is on purpose. It's meant to be a test of faith, something you have to approach with humility, not just brain power. But then there's the other side, human corruption. This theory says, no, the truth was originally simple and clear, but we humans messed it up. It got twisted and confused over time by pride, by philosophy, by people with agendas.
So where does the source land? It comes down firmly on the side of human corruption. The conclusion is that this confusion isn't from God at all. It's man-made. And it points to Scripture to back this up. You know, the part that says God reveals truths unto babes, to the simple and humble, not to the wise and prudent who might try to philosophize it all the way.
And this whole line of thinking leads to a final, and honestly, a very stark conclusion. It takes this whole conversation about theology and reframes it as something much, much bigger. It becomes an all-or-nothing kind of deal.
The argument goes like this. The foundational claims of this faith, what they call the restoration, are different from other beliefs.
They're not just offering another interpretation for you to consider. The source argues that these claims force you into a corner where you have to make a choice. A simple, binary, yes or no choice. And here's that choice, laid out plain as day. The source says it's an all-or-nothing proposition. Either the foundational claims made by Joseph Smith, that he saw God, that he restored the original church, were completely true, or they were a complete fabrication, a lie. There is no in-between. You can't say he was just a good teacher who was mistaken. It's one or the other.
So that's the final takeaway from the source material. It argues that there is absolutely no middle ground. The claim of the restoration isn't presented as something to interpret, but as a definitive black or white yes or no question. It's a really provocative way to end the discussion, taking a complex theological puzzle and turning it into a very personal ultimate decision.